Welcome to the Campbells.
It's All Good Podcast.
Welcome to the Campbells. It's All Good Podcast, where our focus is God, healthy marriage, joy, and life. Join us every episode as we share various aspects of healthy relationship goals that we have set for ourselves, provide practical tips for creating the healthy marriage we desire, and how we live life together in God-ordained joy. Jesus, others, yourself.
Well, welcome back everyone to Season 2, Episode 2. So on this episode, we're going to do a little bit of what we call testimony time. And just have a conversation about some of our life's most challenging moments and different things that happened during that time. And, talk a little bit about what was going on inside of our mind as we were going through that. And then to how we came out of the other side, or may still be in some instances going through, but maybe it's in a more controlled environment now. So we're going to just talk a little bit about some testimonies and some things that we've been through, and with the goal of hoping that it will help somebody in some kind of way. So remember to subscribe, remember to hit the like button, remember to follow us on all our social media platforms, and more importantly, share it with somebody else, because the Bible says you are overcome by our testimony. So you never know who this might help.
Yes. And so a testimony is just such a great revelation of just showing how good God has been, not only to us, but to those that we know and love, even to strangers that we have met who have shared their testimonies with us as well. So I want to share some scripture with you all before we get into our testimonies. One of the first testimonies, first scriptures is from Revelation 12:11. It says, overcoming evil through the word of your testimony. Because sometimes our testimony can completely turn somebody's day, life, a situation that they're in that very moment, completely around. And so we should share our testimony. Also in Mark 5:19, it says, tell friends and family how much the Lord has done for you. And that scripture doesn't mean about boasting, but what it means is that when you share your testimony and that the things that, like Brian said, God has brought you from, or maybe the things that God has blessed you with, it's an encouragement to others that they are not forgotten, that God is with them and will always be with them. And then also I want to share this scripture with you all about testimony, about 2 Timothy 1:8. Never be ashamed of the testimony about our Lord. And that's another thing, that we are never ashamed to spread the gospel and share the testimony of just how good God has been in our lives. Our marriage itself is a testimony.
Yes.
For 11 years for me, I prayed without ceasing. I had faith. Sometimes that faith wavered. But the one thing that was true was that I believed God that He was going to send me my spouse. I believed God that He was going to work on things that I needed to heal, things that I needed to work on myself, that He was preparing the spouse that He had for me, for whatever the things that He was dealing with in His life and things like that. And so for such a time as this, like it says in the book of Esther, that is when the Lord, allowed Brian and I to come together to meet and then to eventually get married. And so I just thank God for just being able to share that testimony with you, our listeners.
Definitely. So, as we talk about, testimony, so you go through, you can't have a test. You can't have a testimony without a test.
Yeah.
You've had to have gone through something. And the one thing is, as life presents to all of us, everybody has a testimony, whether they believe it or not, because everybody has had to go through something. It could be sickness, it could be family, it could be friends, it could be work, it could be some form of addiction. They've had to go through something.
Yes.
And, were able to come out of those situations. When I know for a fact there were times when they didn't feel like or didn't see their way out of that situation, yet they were able to get to the other side. So everybody has something to share. And you just have to look back over your life and think about the different things that you've gone through. And that is where you gain and you can see your testimony.
Oh, so good, so good. So, like I said, we shared and have shared lots of different things about our marriage, and that's one testimony within itself. There's going to be two other testimonies that I'm going to share specifically that have occurred in my life, and so both of them were when I was in college. The first one that I'm going to share. And I'm a storyteller. People tell me in my family all the time, Lania, you are so detailed. Like when you tell a story, you remember dates, times, sometimes, just very specific things. So I'm going to try to shorten it as much as possible, especially this first testimony, because it is something that God keeps on my mind, and I want to not get too emotional. I mean, I'm okay with getting emotional, but I don't want to get too emotional because when I do get emotional, it makes me think of just how good God is. And He keeps this testimony on my mind constantly. I probably think about this every day, and not because of just like, I can't believe I went through that. It's because I think it is the just to keep me humble in the fact of what God brought me through. So I know I mentioned this back in 1988. I lost my great grandmother and I lost one of my favorite aunts. And so in that year, it was a lot of grief in my family, a lot of loss with people that we were very close to. And then also, it was a lot of just beautiful things. I had received a scholarship for a school. I was going to my first college because I ended up transferring to a different college. And so it was my first time going away from home. I was going to be going away to school about 2 hours away from where I grew up. Just a different scenery, scenario. I grew up in the city suburb. Now I was going to a college that was a campus that was in a very rural area. So it was definitely a culture shock for me. I was going to be living in the dorms with people that I just did not grow up with, and a lot of my friends I've known since I was a toddler. It was very different for me. And so my first semester of school, I was just like any college student. I was staying up late. I'm already a night owl, so I was really staying up late. I had early classes and struggling to get to those classes in the morning. My friends that I did go to school with, they lived on the other side of campus, so I didn't see them as much. And so it was kind of like the first time that I was solo without my friend group, and I had a pretty substantial friend group in high school. And so it just, life was different. And so I was not performing in school the way that I should have, because definitely I was a student who got 3.5 or higher in high school. And being transparent, my first semester of college, it was trash. I think I had at one point 7.5. That was what I had, and I couldn't believe it because that was not me. But I was struggling, but I didn't know how to explain that to others because I always did well in school, and I wanted to go to school, and I wanted to excel, and I wanted to be away from home because now I'm quote unquote grown. But I was dealing with a lot. I was dealing with just things like I said with the grief at home. I was having other issues that I was dealing with, and then I was just living what I deemed my adult life there, and things were just moving so fast paced. And so I remember I came home for Christmas break, and I did what I always did. I worked at McDonald's at the time when I was in high school, so they would let me come back and work. So went back to work at McDonald's. I would go get my hair done. One of my favorite beauticians who had a beauty shop in her basement, Miss Willa Mae Curry. Shout out to her. She's gone to glory now, but she played a major part in my life. And so I went to go see her, and I remember being at the beauty shop, and she said, "Hey, Lania, come on and help me decorate for Christmas." And I said, "Okay, I can do that," because I just loved her so. And so I went to go help her decorate, and I mean, I could hardly move. Like it was almost like I had a sudden case of arthritis. And so, and she was an older woman, so she's looking at me like, "Lania, baby, you okay?" Like, you're moving a little slow. It's taking you a minute to get up off the floor. Things as an 18-year-old, shouldn't have been, a problem or issue for me. So I went home. I was struggling sometimes to get out the car. I remember talking to my mom, and she was like, "You know what? We're going to take you to the ER." She took me to the ER, and they said that I was hyperventilating, to breathe into a bag, a paper bag, and this is what they said in the ER, and just to take hot baths just to relax. So in my mind, I'm just thinking they're saying I was stressed out from school that first semester, because I had just finished my first semester of college. Now, about I would say, what's Thanksgiving, about what, 4 weeks prior to Christmas?
Yeah. Roughly.
Okay, so at 4 weeks prior to Christmas, this is when I was out in my 18-year-old day. I went out to the club with my friends, and I grew up in Ohio, so in November it's cold. So I probably did not have, much clothing on. I know I probably didn't have a winter coat on, things like that. I'm going out to the club, and then I'm coming home late at night. This is from days of not getting sleep in school before coming home for Thanksgiving and Christmas break, all those things. So I got sick, and I was really sick. I remember I had the worst cold I think I ever had, that I remember in my life at that time. And so, like I said, came home those weeks later after Thanksgiving break for Christmas break. And now, my body is just like taking a toll, because I think it was trying to catch up on sleep that I had been missing. It was trying to get the nutrition that I wasn't getting, because I was up late eating all that junk that college students eat, pizzas, chicken nuggets, all the whatever I was eating then. It wasn't extremely healthy. And I was just trying to, get back on track. And I think too, deep down inside, I was still dealing with grief and all those things. And so I remember specifically, I was laying in the bed with my grandmother, and I just love laying in the bed with my grandmother. I'm gonna keep it real, and I know there's lots of people who were grandmothers, girls, and things like that. Like, I love being with my grandmother. And so I remember she had gotten up and she was doing her thing for the day. And I remember her calling out to me and saying, "Lania, you're not going to get up?" And I went to go get up, but y'all, I couldn't even get up. Like, I couldn't even hardly roll over in the bed. And I remember just like yelling for her, just like come to help me, because I just couldn't get up on my own. So she helped me up. And if anybody who knew my grandmother, she was a very small lady in stature, maybe no more than maybe 130, 140 pounds. And she was 5'2". So very small lady. And so she helped me up, and I needed to, go to the restroom, all those things. Couldn't even bend down to do those things as well. And I kept telling my family, like, something's going on. And they took notice very quickly. So my mom called my doctor, because he was out for the time initially, because of Christmas break, because I had the same doctor since I was 5 years old. And so his stand-in was there. And it was an older doctor. But she took me, and he had an appointment. She took me, and we went into the office, and I told him my symptoms, things like that. And I don't even think it took 5 minutes. But he looked at me and he said, "Smile at me." And I will never forget my mom's face. My mom looked like she had looked at a ghost, because she literally said to me, "Lania, he asked you to smile." And anybody knows me, I can smile all day long. And I've said, "Mom, I am smiling. I'm smiling really big." And she said, "No, you're not." And so as soon as that happened, he said, I think I know what's wrong with her. She has Guillain-Barré syndrome. And so, of course, my mom and I are like, well, what is that? And so, Brian, I know you being in the medical field, I know you probably have heard of Guillain-Barré. And so for those who do not know what Guillain-Barré syndrome is, it is a neurological disorder where it affects the nerve endings in your body. And so for most people, you get extremely worse, to the point where it looks like you may have had a stroke. You get paralysis, all those things. And the onset is very quickly. The good thing about Guillain-Barré syndrome is that the younger you are, it usually it heals faster. You get through the stages a lot quicker than being older. At that time, there was only one other person that I knew had possibly had or did have Guillain-Barré syndrome, and that was the actor. What's his name? He played Matlock. I can't think of his real name right now.
I got nothing.
Oh gosh, I can see him. He played on Barney Fife and all that.
Andy Griffin?
Yeah, Andy Griffin.
Oh, okay.
So he was the one that my doctor, or the doctor that I had seen, had told me that he was one of the people. And I almost forgot, at the time it was somebody that worked with President Clinton at the time, whoever was in a wheelchair. I don't know the man's name because I don't know much about politics, but I remember seeing that man on TV. He was in a wheelchair. That is the reason why he was in the wheelchair, because he had Guillain-Barré syndrome. So that's all I knew. And fast forward, I met other people. I had met a child who had gotten Guillain-Barré syndrome. He was 5 years old, and he bounced back very quickly through the process that I'll explain in a minute, that I went through. And then one of my classmates when I was in college, she shared with me, because we got to talking, and that she had Guillain-Barré syndrome when she was pregnant. And so that was a whole nother story that she gave to me, just with her being pregnant and going through that. So we had very similar experiences, but also different. So immediately when the doctor diagnosed me, life turned upside down for me. They admitted me immediately. I remember going to the children's ward at Southwest General Hospital in Middlebrook Heights, Ohio, and I was the only person there because at the time I was 18, so they still considered me a child. There was no other children in that ward, so I was all by myself. So talk about being scared. But I wasn't there very long, because within a matter of hours, my body changed completely. Like, my body was being attacked. My neurons were being attacked. It looked like that I had a stroke. My mouth was a little bit twisted, like when you see stroke patients. I could not move at all, and they rushed me to ICU, still at Southwest General Hospital. And the irony was, I was in the same room that my great grandmother had been, before she had passed, and I was across the hall from the room where my aunt had passed, my favorite aunt that I mentioned earlier. So it was very traumatic, just very quickly. And to keep it real, I didn't think that I was going to make it. I thought I was going to leave here, because that was my first time ever going to ICU, ever being sick like that. I'm 18 years old, so as an 18-year-old, you know, all you know is life and death. You don't know all these other things in between. And so I just remember asking God, like, why is this happening, God? Why? What is this that I'm going through? And then just being sad because of knowing that my great grandmother had been there, my aunt, and it just, it was very traumatic in that moment. But this is how good God is, and how I have always trusted Him, even as a little girl. He sent me a dream, and I will never forget that dream that I had. I had a dream that my aunt came to me in that room, and she was very specific, and she said, "Linnea, it's not your time yet. You're going to have to go through these things that you're going to go through, but trust God." And I just remember I was telling my grandmother and my mom at the time when they came to see me in the ICU, and I told them what my Aunt Nisi had said to me. And I mean, they just bawled because they were still grieving as well too. But that's something that she would have said. So we knew it was confirmation from the Lord that I was going to be okay, that I was going to have to go through some things, but I would be okay. So just even within that first night, it was just a lot. By day two, I was no longer in ICU. They rushed me to University Hospital in Cleveland, Ohio. And initially, they were going to rush me in a helicopter, but they decided to put me in an ambulance, because I think they thought when they said helicopter that was going to really freak me out. And so I took that ambulance over to University Hospital, and my aunt was spot on, because I was going through it. I mean, they were testing me for every kind of thing. All I remember is being pricked and prodded with needles, which I do not like needles to this day. I remember them putting on compressions on my legs, that they use the same things for astronauts that go into space, just to keep my circulation going. I remember I wore glasses from the time I was 5 years old. I was 18. I had perfect 20/20 vision, so my neurons in my body were going crazy. I didn't even need to wear my glasses. But my speech was very slurred. You could hardly understand what I was saying. It was very slow, and my body all over from the top of my head to the toes, my toes felt like pins and needles, and it was excruciating pain. Like, I was in pain, because just imagine feeling pins and needles. And so, during that time, I was in the hospital for about a month, and it was some trying time for me. I prayed a whole lot. A lot of times I was very depressed as well too. I would keep my room dark. I just just felt like, why am I still here? Because you're 18. My friends have went back to school by this point. I'm stuck in a hospital room. So I just did not feel like Linnea. I didn't feel like myself. But God was working on me the whole entire time. And this is how I know, because I was in the ward with people who had lost limbs, quadriplegics, paraplegics, and it was very humbling because um, a lot of times they don't mix genders within the same hospital rooms. But I remember when they moved me to my next hospital room, I roomed with a young man, and I will never forget him. I have forgotten his name, but I will never forget him. He was the same age as me, and he had lost one of his limbs, and he felt just like me. He felt cheated. Like, we're young adults, we're kids still, and like now we don't know if we're going to walk again. That's just the simple things of just getting up, and putting on our clothes and just walking, just being able to use those extremities. And like, just the process of what I was going through, because I had been there just a little bit longer than that young man, I was able to pour into him to just encourage him. And so when we would have those bouts, when we would be going through PT and OT, which is physical therapy and occupational therapy, we would encourage each other. And I started to notice as the days went by that he was starting to encourage other people. Because like I said, we had like teams. So within our team, it was he and I, and then there was remember a man that was a quadriplegic who had fallen off, had been thrown from a horse. And then there was another person there. I just can't remember what they were dealing with. And so, that was just one way that God was showing me his power, his work, of being able to encourage somebody, even when you're in a situation that you don't even want to be in. I remember just the things I had to go through to be able to use my extremities. I literally had to go to OT to learn how to hold a fork and write my name with a pencil again. It was like being in kindergarten all over again. I literally had to do music therapy. I did, oh goodness, art therapy, and then just regular therapy, because like I said, very traumatic situation. I was able to talk about other things that were going on in my life. And then also the art therapist and the music therapist, I hope that those things are still available in hospitals, because they were amazing. They just brought a lot out of me, and since I'm a creative, it really was helping me along my healing journey. I had to learn how to walk again, guys. And so when it started for me, it started with just learning how to be in a wheelchair, then go from a wheelchair to a walker, from a walker to a 4-prong cane, and from a cane to a 1-prong cane, and then a slow gait, just like how a toddler learns how to walk. And I remember at that time, my grandmother, I think, was in her late 70s or early 80s, and she was walking faster than me, and I'm asking her to slow down. And then also just being able to walk. And so even after that, I did outpatient occupational and physical therapy for another few months after that to still continue to help me. My grandmother was a big help because my mom had to go back to work. So my grandmother would help me with a lot of those things when I got home. And it just was a time in my life where God showed me, yes, you're going to have to go through something that feels like it's the end for you, but you're going to overcome it. And because of that overcoming, you're going to be able to share your testimony. And even all these years later, I've been able to share with others what it means to just be able to pick up that mat and walk, just like the lame man did in the Bible, and to be able just to encourage others when they're going through something.
So, that's definitely a lot. And, she mentioned me in the medical field. So I do recall I have over the years, I had to take care of a patient who Guillain-Barré syndrome, and I'll never forget that. It was tough. It was definitely a
Yeah.
tough time. But by the time she left our ward, she was just like at step one of starting to be able to move her extremities and her arms and legs and things like that. But in the beginning, there was nothing she could do. We
Yeah.
literally had to do everything for her.
Yeah.
So it's definitely something to see.
And what a lot of people don't understand, even with Guillain-Barré, it doesn't even just affect your extremities, your breathing as well too. And by the grace of God, I did not end up on a ventilator, because there are some people who do. There are some people who have to be injected with these, what they call immunoglobulins. I never had to have that done. I just had the regular IVs. So I thank God for that, because I knew that scared me, and I just said, God, you got to help me. So just Google Guillain-Barré syndrome. Look it up in the online encyclopedias, medical encyclopedias, because it is a very interesting disorder. Not a lot of people get it. It comes on from a virus. So like I said, I had a cold a few weeks earlier, and they say it takes about 4 weeks, and so that's where Christmas time my body was starting to feel it.
Yeah, so it definitely is something.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely something. So I'll talk a little bit about special needs child. So if you know me, then you know that my youngest son is on the spectrum, and autism and things like that have definitely changed over the years. It took some time to figure out exactly what this was and what to call it. Various diagnoses over the years, and now they everything now that you hear is a child is on the spectrum, because it is so broad. There are so many things that go into it. There are so many treatments that are out there, and it's all about trying to find the right one. So it's definitely a challenge for a family. It's a challenge for the child, because you have to think about it. The child is going through something, but they don't know how to communicate what they're going through.
Yeah.
And imagine trying to fix something that you're not sure what you're trying to fix. So then all you can do is rely on the input from the parents, input from the schools, and then hopefully your pediatrician or your specialist can make the right decision. And then, if you believe in medications or don't, trying to figure that out. There are several residential programs that are out there. If it gets to that point to where your child needs some additional care, some specialized care to try to reset some things. There's also the ABA therapy that's out there, applied behavior therapy that's out there. So there's just so much that I could talk about and to get into when you talk about a child with special needs. It does take a strain on a family. You think about it, and I'm sure teachers and educators have seen this, where the parents kind of get focused on that one child because that's the child that needs the most help, and then you kind of lose contact a little bit with the other kids because you're spending all your time trying to keep this one calm, trying to get them to this appointment, trying to do all those other things. And then if you take that and add in the fact military, being deployed while all of that other stuff is still going on, and it has to continue to go on when I'm gone. So you have to, it's a lot that we can discuss on that. But I'm glad to report we're definitely not at 100, but we're definitely not some of the places that we have been. And one of the things, and this just works for my child, one of the things that he has found that he loves, and I think now we're at year 2, is martial arts. I mean, I am amazed at how disciplined he is about it.
Yeah.
He loves it. He like I'm taking him to practice today, as a matter of fact. But he loves it. If he could practice 7 days a week, he would actually be there 7 days a week. He loves it. He's in tournaments and things, and this is something that he has adapted. And this is actually the longest thing that I've seen him be engaged in, where he wants to be engaged in. Period. So this has definitely been a blessing to watch that. And if anybody has any questions or want to know some of my concerns or some of the struggles with that, please reach out to me. There are so many stories that I could tell when it comes to a special needs child, especially for those in the military, because I've battled with TRICARE. I've had to do all of that to find. I've had to find locations for my child to go to. So definitely a lot of experience in that area. And if there's a way that just could make the road a little less bumpy for somebody else, feel free to reach out and we'll be able to share that story.
That's so good. I've learned so much. I've learned so much because of the fact of, not being a special needs parent, but learning how to, become a special needs bonus parent. Because, like Brian said, I know about autism and being on the spectrum and different levels from the educator side. So it's a little bit different because I have students, in the classroom for a certain amount of hours through the day. And so we've set up IEPs and things like that, individual educational plans and things like that to, hit targets and goals. So it's a little bit different than what the child would experience at home with their parents. And so just now, like Brian said, learning all the things that he's interested in, or even if your child is interested in, push them in that direction, encourage them, because that is something that they feel accomplished in, or may help with behaviors, or just if they're having a bad day, can, just mellow them out, cool them down for the day. So just a lot of things that I've been learning, just with having a bonus child or a bonus adult who is on the spectrum.
Yeah, definitely. So it's that in itself, can be a challenge, but again, he is striving and he's done so
Yes.
well and he's continuing to do well, and we just pray that that continues to be the situation. So again, reach out if there are any questions or concerns or thoughts about that. We'd love to hear your feedback, and we'd love to continue to share some of the stories that I've dealt with
Yeah,
that.
and it's such a great testimony. I just, I'm in awe just of what I've seen within the past 4 years, and God has truly blessed our young man, just like I said, in the past 4 years of knowing him. And he's just a joy to be around. We have a good relationship. We talk a lot, and so it's just pretty cool. He's a pretty cool, and I don't want to call him a kid because he is a grown man, but he's a pretty cool kid grown man.
Yeah, that definitely he is. Definitely he is.
Alrighty, guys. Well, we've shared some of our testimonies. I know we had said we were going to share some more, but we don't want to make this episode too long, so we might just pick up on our next episode because we do want to share these things with you all, just to encourage those who may have dealt with similar things or know somebody, because we just want to just show and tell you the goodness of God and how we can overcome things that have been thrown at us in life, how even if we're still dealing with certain things because of those things that we've dealt with, that, God is still faithful. He's still with us. He doesn't forget about us, even when sometimes I know some of us think or feel like, is he really there? Is he there really? But he is, and he has shown us that countless times, because there's so many different testimonies that Brian and I could share with you all, and we would be here for hours and hours. But God is good. Our testimonies are, the testament of our faith and the things that we were tested with. And so with all of those things, we have grown. So that's the most important thing.
So one of the things, and I just remember this song as a kid, and I have not heard this song since, and I don't even know if I could find this song, but it was a song, and it was I think it was two or three ladies who were singing this song, and the words were very simple. It was like, "Don't you mind me if I seem a little fidgety? Don't you mind me if I have to sing and shout? Because God gave me everything to shout about." It said, "I've got some stories that I can tell, some testimonies that will do you well, because if you've been through what I've been through, you would be dancing too." So if you
Mm.
think about that, I mean, we've all gone through different situations and whatnot, but you never know what someone else is going through, because, there's a saying that, some people don't look like what they've been through. What you see on the outside is not what they're feeling on the inside. So you have to just know, you never know what
You
anybody
never
else is
know.
dealing with and what they're going through. So just have to be mindful of that. So
Yeah.
hey, we just thank you so much for listening to us today. Again, we're on season 2, episode 2, and today was a little bit of testimony time, and we just love sharing some of our thoughts, our concerns, and giving you a just a slight view into some things that are going on or have happened in our life over the years. And
Yes.
we just look forward to continue to share this with you. Positive message, positive conversation, and just getting this out into the atmosphere. Again, we invite you to subscribe, to like our product, to share, and to just, tell somebody about the Campbell's It's All Good, because we are trying to share some good news in today's world.
Yes. So tune in next time to season 2, episode 3. We love you all. We're the Campbells.
It's All
All
Good
Good Podcast.
Podcast.